Tejanos were, and long had been, an isolated people. The Spaniards, after 1821, Mexicans, valued Tejas only as a defensive buffer against French, British, Indian, and finally American encroachments. Beginning in the early 18th century, tight-fisted officials dispatched clerics, soldiers, and settlers to the frontera, but never in numbers sufficient to achieve dominion or provide for their safety. Removed by distance from the seat of viceregal power, Texas colonists learned to fend for themselves. That de facto abandonment nourished a culture detached from the rest of the country. Tejanos developed their own customs, clothing, music, tactics, and food. On those rare occasions that government bureaucrats did venture into Texas, they found the inhabitants unfamiliar, uninformed, and uncouth. During General Terran's 1828 inspection, Lieutenant Jose Maria Sanchez noted,
The Mexicans that live here are very humble people, and perhaps their intentions are good, but because of their education and environment, they are ignorant not only of the customs of our great cities, but even of the occurrences of our revolution.
true, beyond the mainstream of Mexican life and culture, Tejanos developed their own societal formations, their own economic concepts, and their own political principles, with scarcely a thought to events in Mexico City. They, probably more than any other Mexicans, were proud natives of La Patria Chica, but in their case, a not so little homeland. Tejanos scraped out an existence in a hostile borderland. Their priorities were their families, their communities, and their region. What, after all, had Mexico City ever done for them? Tejas had always been a military frontier. Sons and grandsons of hardy presidial troopers, boys grew up on horse with arms. Instead of the smug condescension they normally received, Tejanos thought that interior Mexicans owed them their appreciation for securing the frontera. They expected government authorities might at least acknowledge their many contributions. In one petition, Tejanos entreated exclusive legislation for their worthy status as inhabitants of the frontier who have undergone sacrifices and risk unknown to the people of the interior, and for which the latter are indebted to the former. Yet, assistance or even gratitude was rarely forthcoming. The official response was always the same. The coffers are empty. Do the best you can. You're on your own. But no one knew that better than the Tejanos themselves. The faraway lawmakers in Mexico City could not help them. They would turn to people who could. Texas traditionally suffered from a minuscule population, the reason Tejano elites championed Anglo-American immigration. Writing the same year the Centralists dictated the law of April 6, Bayer resident Francisco Ruiz declared,
I cannot help seeing advantage which, to my way of thinking, will result if we admitted honest, hardworking people, regardless of what country they come from, even hell itself.
American frontiersmen were proven Indian fighters, which the beleaguered Tejanos welcomed. Anglos were also improving the regional economy, raising both cattle and cotton in abundance. Lacking the means to produce even basic commodities, Tejanos increasingly relied on American trade.
Although it grieves us to say so, we should state that the miserable manufacture of blankets, hats, and even shoes was never established in Texas towns. Lack of these articles has obliged us to beg them from foreigners or from the interior of the Republic, 200 or 300 leagues distant.
For all those reasons, Tejanos opposed punitive legislation that might drive American colonists away. Wealthy Tejanos believed the financial development of the state, and indeed their own prospects, interconnected with the American colonists, their cotton economy, and ultimately their slaves. Cotton, after all, did not plant or pick itself. Consequently, Tejanos joined Stephen F. Austin and Green DeWitt in opposing both the 1829 Guerrero anti-slavery decree and the 1830 law of April 6. While political chief Ramon Musquiz admitted that slavery was unfortunate, he nevertheless condemned freeing Texas slaves as hasty, especially as the benighted region was just beginning to show a profit. Austin's friend and collaborator, Jose Antonio Navarro, introduced a cynical legal loophole whereby American planters might still bring their slaves in as indentured servants. Neither the Guerrero Decree nor the Law of April 6 placed any restrictions on personal servants. Changing their title, of course, made no difference in how those wretched souls lived day to day. Paraphrase the bard, that which we call a slave by any other name would be a shackle. Tejano and American colonists got along well enough when they came into contact, but such opportunities were infrequent. Again, the reason was distance. Each group settled in population clusters. Tejano communities developed in three widely separated areas: San Antonio de Bexar, the political hub of Texas; the Nacogdoches region, buried deep within the piney woods; and the Victoria-Goliad district, where open-range ranching flourished. For their part, most American colonists lived in East Texas and on the rich bottomland drained by the Brazos River. Between the settlement clusters lay wide open vacant spaces. Vacant, that is, unless Indian raiders were on the warpath. The arrival of Austin's colonists trapped Tejanos between two realms. They had no desire to have Centralists in Mexico City, or, for that matter, even Federalists in Saltillo, dominate Tejas and impede its progress. Then again, neither did they want to surrender hegemony to Americans still down from the waters of the Sabine River. Tejanos and the Anglo colonists needed each other, which is not to say they always trusted each other. But one must cut his coat according to his cloth. And while both sides might have wished for better, they had to make do with the material at hand. Mexicans frequently described Norte Americanos as drunken adventurers. In a remarkably frank exchange, one report to state officials read, "Let us be honest with ourselves, sir. The foreign impresarios are nothing more than money-changing speculators caring only for their own well-being and hesitating not in their unbecoming methods." American settler Mary S. Helm returned the compliment by describing Mexicans as
debris of several inferior and degraded races, demoralized by a long course of indolence and political corruption.
It was in this climate of distrust and derision that some American colonists thought themselves obliged to depend on Tejanos less and grab their fortunes and futures in their own hands.